Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, and we battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time, according to two film geeks from Wiltshire, England. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a review and subscribe. This week on the Film vs. Film podcast, as Nightmare Alley will be hitting our big screens around the world, and of course that is directed by the one and only Guillermo del Toro.
Are you sure he's the one and only? I thought I had one in my basement or something. Maybe that was just a Santa Claus or something.
Last time I looked, he might have been there. I don't know. As ghosts usually do, he can't wait till his introduction. I am joined by the resident ghostly figure that is Boaz Dix. How are you, sir?
Woo! Yeah. Yeah, that's just me like, way, yay, so excited. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
Awesome. As always, we have a Buy Me a Coffee account, so if you want to say a big thank you, follow the show notes below, and you can buy us a coffee and send us a big thank you. That would be amazing. Right, my pick then is a fairly, even though it came out quite recently, it's a fairly unknown Guillermo del Toro film, because I think when it came out, a lot of people didn't like it, and I seem to quite enjoy it quite a lot, and I was like, again, one of these cases of, did I watch a different film? I think it's possibly the fact that I researched this a lot before watching it. I think, listening to a lot of interviews from the cast and Del Toro himself, that he specifically said that this is not a horror film, this is like a gothic romance.
Yeah.
Well, in his eyes, he didn't see this as a horror movie as such, even though there is a lot of horror elements in this film, but essentially it's a romantic film.
Yeah.
And also another issue really with people is that I think this film is impossible to market properly.
Yeah, I think
the producers, I guess Guillermo was just like, this is a gothic romance. I'm like, we don't know how to market that. We're just going to market it as a horror movie.
Yeah.
So expectations are just like, yeah, this is a horror film for people, and then people's are just naturally disappointed, I think. Even though the scares are okay.
Yeah. I would actually say, I think there was a kind of similar thing coming into this, because at first I wasn't sure if I'd heard of this, but I remembered I'd seen trailers for this, and I had seen, promotion for this whenever it came out. Yeah. And so I'm starting to watch it, and I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm kind of on the edge of my seat thinking, this is a horror film, because I remember that's sort of how it looked like it was being marketed. But I think you're right. I think it was mismarketed.
I think the only real gothic romances I kind of know is Rebecca, like the two versions of Rebecca. Yeah, it's kind of similar to that sort of romantic, ghosty story, a lot like this. I went with Crimson Peak just to see if it was any good still. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of Guillermo del Toro films that we all know that are amazing. And obviously, when I announced Guillermo del Toro films, I think you said Pan's Labyrinth before I even finished his name.
Yeah.
Even though it was my turn first, I was like, I'll let you have Pan's Labyrinth. I liked Shape of Water a lot.
Yeah, Shape of Water was pretty good.
That was fine. Then it was basically between Devil's Backbone and this one. And I kind of didn't, and I've never seen Devil's Backbone before, and I didn't want to keep going down the route of, I'll pick this one because I hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
So I went with Crimson Peak. Basically, I'm double checking if I liked it or not.
All right, no, that's interesting. Interesting. I was going to say there are other kind of ones I could have picked Guillermo del Toro. I could have gone like Pacific Rim, which is a stupid film, but dude, I fucking loved that film when it came out. Like, that was incredible. I love that film.
Yeah, it's fun. So what happens in Crimson Peak? Well, in Crimson Peak, we're introduced to a young lady in, Victorian era America, a lady called Edith Cushing, and her mother dies at a very young age, and her ghost comes back to haunt her. It's more of a warning. She says, beware of Crimson Peak. And then it happens again when she's fully grown into Maya Wasikowska as Edith Cushing. And then one day a baronet called Thomas Sharp comes to visit her father, because the Cushings are a very wealthy family, and he's looking to invest money into this new clay mining machine so he can get funds to build that properly in England, Cumberland. But as the story progresses, Edith and Thomas fall in love, or appear to fall in love. Then they get married. They go back to their house in England. This house is incredibly old. I mean, there's even a massive hole in the top of the roof. It's literally sinking into the clay. And they're joined by Lucille, Thomas's sister, played by Jessica Chastain. As the story progresses, you kind of realise very quickly that the Sharps have basically married Thomas to Edith for her money, and her father gets bumped off, and throughout the film she seems willing to devote her life to Thomas and share all her money with him and the Sharps. But throughout the film you just get this funny feeling that it's not all as it seems, and lots of blood and ghosts appear in this film. Yeah. And many deaths. Yes. So what did you make of this one then, Boaz?
Yeah, no, I mean, I liked it. I will say I had, some problems with it.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah. But, ultimately, I think where it kind of excels is, it's got quite a small cast, is one of the things, so it's kind of tight-knit and sort of fairly focused. I like that it's mainly the three cast members of, Mia, Jessica Chastain, and Tom Hiddleston. And I really like their performance. I love Jessica Chastain in this. I think you just mentioned that, but I thought she was incredibly scary. She is a very scary woman. It kind of now makes me very scared to approach her if you ever see her. Because she might stab the bejesus out of you or do whatever, poison you. And I love the visuals in this film. Again, this is something you cannot fault Guillermo del Toro on the visuals. And this film is visually quite amazing, I think where I kind of have problems, and we'll get to it when we get to it, is kind of the script. I just felt like it was a really good idea, but a lot of it just seems really cliche, Like, I could kind of tell where everything was going, and I just don't think there was enough in it. It felt like a really nice appetizer for something bigger, but that was all it was. You kind of get what I mean? Yeah. It felt like I got a taste of this, a little bit, really epic story, and there was some cool bits in it, but it just didn't fill me enough. I'm trying to use an analogy, and I like eating because I'm a fat bastard, so it's a food analogy. But yeah, I mean, we'll talk about this, when we get to the script. But overall, I thought it was good. There was just I just don't think the script was quite there yet, but
So directing then, as you said, visually, I think this film is stunning. I think Del Toro definitely has this brilliant, flowing camera. He seems to be one with the camera. He just knows how to use it so well to go from scene to scene and place to place whilst tracking the characters. Yeah. Probably better at that in Pan's Labyrinth than in this film, but I think possibly the downfall of this film in one aspect is certain parts of the directing. Actually, the first half an hour, it is directed like a horror film. Yeah. There are a lot of suspenseful moments that are designed to get a scare out of you, because I think the film probably should have focused more on particular characters rather than, certainly at the start, than more of the scares, I think. Yeah. But I think the scare I preferred the most is probably the second appearance from the ghost. When Edith's door rattles open and there's nothing there, then cut straight to the black ghost in full view in the corridor. Then a sharp movement, and then the scream made me jump, actually. When the ghost comes through the door, didn't particularly work for me, because I think the rhythm and the timing of the sequence just made the scare predictable in that bit. But that initial just cut straight to that mid shot of the ghost, oh shit, it's right there.
Yeah, I kind of agree, actually, and I think the first couple of times with, like, the mother's ghost, especially, you know, when it comes next to her and all this stuff, it's like, it's creepy in theory, and it looks great, but it doesn't really scare you. Yeah, there are a few of those with the spectres and spirits. You're like, man, this looks awesome. And there is some suspense building, but I think you're right. It's like the ghost coming at you or whatever. It kind of happens in a way you'd think it would happen, so it doesn't really, like, surprise you that much.
There's another good scene when where Edith is getting out of the bath, and again, the scene starts with a very creepy shot in a corridor on the ghost in complete silhouette, and it gets closer to Edith, and there's a brilliant, like, smoky feel to the ghosts, but this one's like all red in the house in England, and the way it lifts his head up to reveal that its head is completely caved in was really and it's got like really long fingers is a really creepy look. The sound is very unnerving too, like this burning sound as it moves, and the sound of insects is certainly a running theme in the film. Yeah, I quite like the design of the ghost, actually.
Yeah, I thought the design looked pretty amazing, with its skull caved in, and it had a, you know, sort of, it looked like a sort of pattern sort of thing going on. It looks fairly realistic, even for what it is, where it's like this intangible, like, red mist energy thing. But it looks like surprisingly practical when it's not, you know.
Yeah, I think all the CG is like all the smoky burning feel, but I think everything else is pretty real, and they, you know, make it look see-through as well, obviously, because they're a ghost.
Yeah, I thought that was brilliant. Some other scenes I quite liked with the like the red ghost are, you know, when it's sitting in the bathtub. I thought that was pretty creepy.
Oh yeah,
with the sword that materializes, or whatever, the machete that materializes out of its skull. And then it kind of, you know, it's breathing. It's like, and it comes after her, you know, and that was pretty damn cool.
Yeah, I felt sorry for that ghost there. He's just trying to take a bath. I'm like, you're disturbing him.
Exactly. Like, knock on the door, for fuck's sake.
Let the ghost take a bath.
God damn it. It's, you know, no privacy. It's horrible. I mean, I love the visuals of the house. I think the house looks awesome. And, you know, the hole in the ceiling and the snow. Just everything looks really great. You know, where she was thrown off the balcony as well. And I thought that looked amazing. And you have always this ever-present red clay that's moving through the floor. I just think that all of that looks really cool.
Certainly the colour red is very much a running theme in this film. I like the way Del Toro mixes it up in the scares, where Edith thinks she's heard a noise in a cupboard. And then a red ghost like slams the door shut, and Edith opens the door again, and there's a load of like wax cylinder recordings. And then you think the scare has passed, but no, all of a sudden a ghost is trying to get out of the floorboards and chase her. I thought that was quite effective.
Yeah, that was cool.
In kind of mixing the rhythm of the suspense up. Not as good as something like we've kind of discussed in M. Night Shyamalan films, where he was kind of a master at that in Signs especially. I quite like the little showdown Lucille and Edith have that ends in the snow. Like, I always enjoy some nice cat and mouse directing, which I think works well here. Like, Chastain's movements are made more expressive with this like big flowing gown she has. That she's wearing, you know, makes her look like the female version of Dracula at times. It's like really bloody too. Like, Edith cuts Lucille's hand twice in the elevator when her hand's stuck in the elevator. And Lucille catches Edith's knife in her hand, and there's like blood gushing everywhere. The whole setting is amazing to watch as well, with, you know, the stark contrast of the white of the snow and then the blood red / red clay. Great visual set piece at the end, I guess. Plus, seeing Tom Hiddleston's ghost is quite creepy, but in like white tones this time, and not red or black, which I found quite interesting.
Yeah, I found that ending really epic and very beautiful.
Yeah. You got a favourite shot then, or favourite sequence?
Okay, yeah, favourite shot, mainly because it made me go, whoa! I think it was the only part in the film that made me go, like, whoa. Not so much in like...
I think it's the same as mine.
Yeah, I think it was the shock, really. It's like Tom Hiddleston's stabbing. Holy fuck. She stabs the hell out of Tom. And then what was crazy is when she stabs him in the face, and then his eye goes like blood red. He's in shock, and you know, obviously just looking at her, and then cries tears of blood and then passes. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's my favourite shot as well. Like, I found Thomas's death quite shocking with Lucille. Is stabbing him basically because he's betrayed her, and then all of a sudden stabs him right in the cheek. Definitely made me gasp out loud, just saying like, "Whoa, what the fuck?"
Yeah,
you know,
that did audibly made me go, "Oh my God!"
And when Hiddleston is literally pulling out the knife, that was quite horrible.
Yeah.
Too. Score Boaz, what are you going for?
Yeah, so to sum up my opinions on the direction of the film, I think it's directed superbly in so much as it looks great. The set design is great. It's a very colourful film, for what it is. Especially, where it talks about its Crimson Peak, there's a lot of reds and a lot of great use of reds and contrast of reds. The visual effects are really amazing. I would say my major problem with the directing, we've discussed this before, but it's that it's not a very scary film. You feel like it's meant to be, but it's not. And I think a lot of the jump scares, there are some bits that I thought were genuinely like, whoa,
Whoa as in scary or whoa as in visually great?
I think it was whoa as in visually just like maybe gory or, I didn't expect it to go that
Oh, when he stabs him.
When she stabs him in the face, yeah. And also when her father gets his head smashed in. So, like, those are particularly gory bits. However, it's like the build-up to these events and most of the scares are just not scary. Because there's a way you can do jump scares. There's a way you can build to scares. And I find that Guillermo del Toro just hasn't got it quite right. Like, he builds up the tension, but then he kind of gives it to you when you think you're going to get it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, build it up, and then you get it when you expect to get it. And I think that really undercuts any fear. When something's scary, it's genuinely because you didn't see it coming. This is why we were saying, on another episode, M. Night Shyamalan and Signs, that he ramps up the tension, gets you right there, and then doesn't show it. And then when everything's deflated, then it just comes out of nowhere. Yeah. You've relaxed. You've like, oh, well, I guess it's not good. Ah! But I don't think Guillermo del Toro does that in this film. He builds it up for a couple of seconds, but then it jumps out at you when you expect it to jump out at you. So I feel he didn't quite succeed with the scares, but I think visually it's a stunning film. Visual effects are great, costume, set design, everything like that is just phenomenal.
I think I do get the sense that like Guillermo del Toro was kind of setting himself up to fail a little bit with this film, because I don't think he, in his mind's eye, I don't think he really wanted the ghosts to be particularly scary. I think he kind of wanted the ghosts to have their own particular arc. He didn't want them to be really unlikable. Yeah. He wanted Lucille and to a certain extent Thomas to be the more unlikable characters, not the ghosts. So I think certainly throughout the film, I'll go into this more in screenplay, but they do become less scary on purpose.
Yeah.
So I just feel like that's always going to be a really, really difficult task in a story like this. Whereas in other films, when the monster characters are not technically the monsters, it works a lot better.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree. However, I mean, you could sort of throw a curveball at making the ghost at least appear to be, malicious and evil, and then do a twist reveal. But when we even get to screenplay, it's like there aren't that many. There are twists, but there are not big twists because, again, it does feel formulaic. It feels like you can sort of guess where everything's going. Yeah. But yeah, I think you're right. I think this is more to do with an issue with the screenplay that bleeds into the directing. As you rightly said, like they're not really meant to be villains, the ghosts. They're meant to be like warning of, what the hell Lucille and Hiddleston are doing.
So score Baz, what are you going to go for directing?
So I had been thinking before of like a really high one, just generally because I quite like Guillermo del Toro, and I do like the visuals of this film. I think visually great. I would still give it high, maybe not as high as a 9, maybe like an 8.8.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think I would go as high as that. I think Pan's Labyrinth is probably a lot better directed than this. I think there is one, not just the screenplay, but I think there is one key directional thing that I don't think Del Toro gets right, and that's with casting, which I'll certainly get onto in screenplay and acting as well. But I think fundamentally the director as we've said, and a lot of people say, 90% of directing is casting, and I just feel like the chemistry between Maya Wasikowska and Tom Hiddleston just isn't there.
Yeah.
Compared to, Tom Hiddleston and Lucille, it's not compelling enough to root for Edith.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think even when they're wooing each other, and then he asks, to me, I thought that came out of left field. I was like, wait, he was wooing her? Like, I was like, what the hell? And then it became the main plot that they were married. But I do see what you mean. It was like, I don't really see them as a couple. I just didn't really buy the chemistry there.
Nothing against, like, Maya Wasikowska at all. I think she's an amazing actress. Like Stoker, amazing film. But I think sometimes when you've got a central romance like this and two great actors, sometimes they just don't work. And unfortunately, it falls into this trap with this film. Maybe just a few more screen tests from Del Toro would have worked, possibly. I mean, certainly with that's personal taste. For others, they might see the on-screen chemistry, but it didn't work for me as well as it should have for this type of story. So I'll go with like an 8.4 for directing. Right, screenplay then. I think the first 40 minutes are quite interesting, where the film establishes very early on that the Sharps are in desperate need of money, and Thomas chooses Edith to marry her for the money, to repair their house and to stay alive with her money. But you get the sense as well that it's not that simple, that something else is going on here, but you can't quite put your finger on it. There's scenes where Edith's father, Carter Cushing, suspects something's not right with the Sharps, but comes to the quick conclusion that it's because he's in debt and bribes Thomas to leave his daughter. But then someone killing him seems to be very extreme if it's just for money. Then there's the scene in the park where Thomas wants the engagement ring off Lucille to ask Edith to marry him. And Thomas says to Lucille, "This is the last thing we have to sell." Then Lucille says, "You are not selling it. We are buying something with it." And she says it with a very sinister way, like there's something else going on here. It's not just for Edith's money, so I kind of like how the script sows the seeds of making it quite obvious that Thomas is marrying Edith for the money, but it's not that simple. There's something else here. I know that's the mystery in this film, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah. Well, I kind of enjoyed the setup that there was this great mystery, but I think if you just step back and think about it, there really isn't a great mystery in it. I feel it's more of a good setup and then not really a satisfying payoff to the mystery. I mean, at the end of the day, they just want her money, and ultimately what it's for is to stop the house from sinking, under this red clay, which I think the place is cursed, and that they're in a incestuous relationship as well, and that they've murdered before, that they've done this before. But I feel like I worked that out fairly early on.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I'm not sure if it's just I'm a genius or whatever, or I've just seen this plot set up quite a few times and I could sort of just work this out. It seems like a logical conclusion.
Maybe I'm just a dumbass. I don't know.
Really? Did you know? I don't know. I just kind of worked it out fairly quickly. So I would say, to me, that would be my gripe with the screenplay, is just how quickly I kind of got on to what was going on, and still there was investigation going on, and she's still trying to work out. I'm like, come on, I know what's going on. And I was right on the money, so I was like, oh, okay, fair enough.
But, I mean, did you still enjoy following the story, even though you knew?
Yeah, no, I mean, I enjoyed following the story regardless of that. I think there could have been things done that to me would have made it less obvious. So in my opinion, don't make them seem so evil so early on, or make Thomas seem more evil than she is, because it's not so much a twist when she is really the scariest one, from the off. Do you know what I mean?
No, I don't think that was ever supposed to be a secret, that she was batshit.
No, I know about this, but I'm just saying, I think my enjoyment of it would have improved had it felt like there were twists and progression. The whole thing is a mystery of why they want to marry her, and there's some conspiracy going on. I'm saying I felt like I kind of worked it out fairly early on. And I think I would have enjoyed had there been better or more twists, or do you know what I mean? Just a little more mysterious. I just, in my personal opinion, I just found it a bit too easy to work out. I know they're evil from the off. I know they're poor or something's going on with their finances. I can work out they're desperately wanting to marry this chick. He's found out something in the paper. I could just kind of work it out. It's like, yeah, they're gonna take her money and kill her, aren't they? You know, and then when he's talking about, you know, wasting a fortune on trying to, you know, keep the house afloat, it's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I've worked this out, but we still have to get her to work this out. And I think it was enjoyable how she worked it out. She does some very cunning things. I like the scene where she steals the key, and that whole part there I thought was very clever. But to me, you know, at a certain point, it really wasn't a mystery. I kind of had worked everything out. So that's my major problem with the screenplay. It was like, oh yeah, okay, that's it, you know.
All right.
But it kept going. So I still did enjoy the cat and mouse run through it, but I just wish it was more of a surprise or more unique what they were going for. You know, I've seen films where, you know, the ghosts are just there to warn them that the humans are evil.
Oh, right.
And I felt this was very on the nose, and it was just very obvious to just...
All right, well...
Like, well, oh yeah, the ghosts are not a harm to her at all. They're trying to warn her that these people are psychopaths.
Well, I was sucked into the story, and I was still trying to work it out, because I just found, like, the sense of it being incest just so, they can't, that's ridiculous.
Dude, come on. It's like, since Game of Thrones, incest is now in fashion.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Incest is everywhere. You know, it's now like, you know, incest is the new black. You know,
I got into Game of Thrones very late, so I watched this fairly soon after it came out, so... That idea, that notion never really came into my mind. And then I got into Game of Thrones and it was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Because to me, I didn't find it too much of a like shocking twist or reveal where she catches them shagging or whatever. And she's like, you're not his sister. And it's like, yes, I am. And then throws her off the balcony. That scene was cool. But it's like, yeah, of course she can be. Like, you know, come on, man. This is a post-Lannister world, you know. Everything goes.
Anything goes.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the point when I was trying to work it out, I liked it when Edith escapes one of the ghosts down into the basement with the vats of clay. She finds a box with the words Enola Sharp. You know, the focus of the questions of the film is always, well, for me anyway, this can't just be about money for the Sharps. Who is Enola Sharp? Is it their mother, ex-wife, or, you know, are they in the box? The film always seems to give you another question and a moment of mystery to grapple onto about who are the Sharps really, and I enjoyed trying to work that out throughout the film, pre-watching Game of Thrones.
Yeah, fair enough. I just felt like they do set up constantly a mystery, and as you're saying, oh, it's got to be more. But I don't think there's a payoff that it is more than that. Like, they literally are after her money. So, I mean, what else do they want from her other than her money? Like, as far as I'm concerned, anywhere in the ending, in case I've missed something, there's nothing special about her other than she's rich, right? So, in my opinion, I think it builds up that there is something they need from her, and it can't just be a vast wealth, but it really is just a vast wealth. So.
But that's never the mystery, though, in this film. Yeah. The mystery is what is the relationship between Tom and Lucille.
Yeah. Again, I worked that out fairly quickly.
Yeah. That's the mystery of the film.
I still thoroughly enjoyed it, and especially, like, as I said, the cat and mouse of her, you know, trying to work out what's going on and going over behind the sister's back. And I love the sister's character and how she's written.
Yeah.
She is really, really evil, you know, and she does it very well. So I do enjoy that. And I enjoyed the third act and everything like that. To me, I think I said this before when I said my general thoughts on the movie. It does feel like a taster, and I kind of wasn't fully satisfied. I think,
sequel.
Yeah, I think part of that, though, is the fact that I could work out the plot fairly quickly, and it does seem, at least in my mind, quite cliche, like where everything was going to go.
There are specific moments in the film which I find interesting of how they reveal all these secrets. And I think when Edith opens the vat of clay and it's revealed that there is a dead body in there, and she makes the connection that Thomas has been trying to wed wives for their money in Edinburgh and Milan, and now with Edith, that was never really the mystery, as I said, but because it was obvious from near the start, the reveal that Lucille was killing her from the start with the tea was a nice reveal, I thought.
Yeah, I thought that was done tremendously well, where she's reading through the diary and it's like, you know, don't drink the tea or whatever. No, was it gramophone or whatever? Recording. And he was
Yeah,
like,
wax cylinders.
yeah, it was like, don't drink the tea, they're poison. And you're like, oh shit, she's always been drinking the tea, she's been poisoned. So yeah, I do think that bit was cool. I especially like how she's always trying to afterwards give her tea, like she's very ill, and she refuses it and just gives her the porridge, and then later is like, she won't drink the tea, she's worked it out. I'll just put the poison in the porridge, You're like, whoa.
But I think what's great about this script is you still get the sense that the Sharps are still hiding something, and when Thomas confronts Lucille about why do we have to kill this one, must we? Lucille explains that she'll be taken away and Thomas will be hanged. You think it's because they've murdered all these women, but their acting is telling you something else. Lucille says, you couldn't leave me. You wouldn't. And puts her hand around his face, and Thomas says, I can't. And Lucille says, I know. Well, they're both quite teary, and again, like, this doesn't feel right. They should be panicking and working out a plan, not getting emotional in this tender way. And then, of course, you find out that Lucille likes her brother more than one should. Yeah. The real monster is Lucille. She isn't just killing Thomas's wives for money. She's killing them for love because she loves her brother. Ew. Again, pre-Game of Thrones. I saw this. Lucille says to Edith, the horror was for love. The things we do for love like this are ugly. Mad, full of sweat and regret. This love burns you and maims you and twists you inside out. It's a monstrous love, and it makes monsters of us all. Really beautiful writing there, and beautifully delivered from Jessica Chastain. But I think the problem for me in this film, I found myself rooting for Lucille because, one, Jessica Chastain is amazing in the part as Lucille, and plus Edith is just not a very interesting character. There's not much there to root for in Edith's character. Just a bit underwritten, really. After watching it, I'm like, I don't know, other than liking Mary Shelley earlier on, that's it.
Yeah.
I don't know what she's about. A wealthy, a little bit spoiled daughter.
Yeah, no, I do completely agree with you. There is absolutely nothing to her character if you think about it. She's a writer, she likes writers, and she wants to be a writer. This is something mentioned at the beginning, but this is something that has no bearing on the plot. So she's just a rich woman. That's about it.
So I was just like, yeah, Lucille, get her, because I liked her character.
Yeah, she had a lot of depth,
and plus, I think I could have done a better acting job than Charlie Hunnam. To be fair, he's a bit rubbish.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Charlie.
He is pretty
sorry,
bad. Yeah,
not good. Yeah, there's some cool lines in this film from Edith. She says, "You're monsters, both of you." I think Lucille says, "Funny, that's the last thing Mother said too." From Lucille, "You should have seen his sad face when I smashed it on the sink."
Yeah, but Jesus, she had some really badass shit to say.
My favourite line exchange is when Edith and Lucille are looking at a painting of Lucille's mother, and Edith says, "She looks quite..." And then Lucille says, "Horrible? Yes, it's an excellent likeness."
Yeah, that was funny.
Have you got a favourite line then? Or?
So where they're talking about the butterflies that are, dying on the floor. She's like, they're dying, they take heat from the sun, and when it deserts them, they die. And she's like, how sad. No, it's not sad, Edith. It's nature. It's a world of everything dying and eating each other right beneath our feet. But she's like, yeah, beautiful things are fragile. At home we only have black moths, formidable creatures to be sure, but they lack beauty. They thrive on dark and cold. It's like, what do they feed on? Butterflies, I'm afraid. I just remember that exchange, but I couldn't remember any of the words.
Yeah.
But that's a damn good exchange of just like, she's the pretty little butterfly and she's the evil dark moth that's going to destroy her.
So, screenplay score, what are you going with, Mr. Encyclopedia Man?
As I was saying before, like, I like a lot of the lines. I like the atmosphere. I like the cat and mouse stuff. I love Lucille. However, at least in my mind, again, you might disagree, but I just found it way too...
predictable.
way too predictable. I just found the plot way too predictable. I kept thinking there's got to be more than this, and it just ended up panning out pretty much exactly how I thought it would. So because of that, I'm actually, this is going to be a difficult one. I need to sort of temper it, but I'm going to go like about I'm gonna go about maybe like a 6.7.
What?
Yeah. If it was a little less predictable, I think I would have got it a much higher.
Yeah, I'm not sure it goes as low as that. That's quite low.
That's my opinion.
I think what's probably important with this film is don't watch Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Basically, I think everybody now who's writing some incest drama is like, shit. Fuck. Goddamn George R. R. Martin. Years of work.
Yeah. But I do commend Del Toro's bravery for trying a film like this. The fact that this film is certainly, to a certain extent, paying homage to things like Rebecca and Daphne du Maurier and Gothic literature, Gothic romances of the 40s and 50s. So I just feel like, in a sense, that this film is just in the wrong time, in the wrong time period, for the wrong people, for millennials. Millennials just won't appreciate this film. Whereas this film was released in the 40s, they would absolutely lap this shit up.
Yeah.
So I commend his bravery for that. I think if people have that in mind, I know you should never have anything in mind before watching it, but I think with this one,
Yeah.
you should. So I don't know. I'll go like a 7.8, I think, because I think Lucille is a great character, and Tom Hiddleston's character is great as well. And I did enjoy trying to work out the real mystery in this film, so I think it's not as bad as people think. I don't think. Right, acting then. I really like the acting from Jessica Chastain, who plays Lucille Sharp when Edith and her brother are introduced to the party. She has these brilliant steely eyes that she's displeased that her brother has brought this girl to the party, and there's an amazing shot from the back of her when she's finished playing the piano after Thomas and Edith have danced together. She just turns her head slightly and slowly like she's hiding something, then she walks with the fakest smile ever, like she's pretending to be happy for the couple, but deep down she hates it.
Yeah.
It's just Jessica Chastain is brilliant in this film.
Yeah, 100%.
There's a lot of brilliant looks and stares Thomas and Lucille give each other throughout this film to keep the sense of mystery in this film. Well, to me anyway. When Thomas and Edith start kissing in the attic, then I like the way Lucille is directed as she storms her way in the room, and in a graceful way with the tea tray. And Lucille gives Thomas a look of, I know exactly what you're doing. And then Thomas looks back at her like, just leave me alone with my wife for 1 second. I love the piece of acting from Jessica Chastain again when Edith tells her she spent the night at the depot, and Lucille snaps at Edith while flinging a saucepan of eggs onto the table in a moment of rage. Then she becomes really quiet and sad and says, I was alone. I can't be alone. Then Edith says she doesn't feel well, and Lucille says, I'll make you tea. And it's like she snaps right back into this stern persona that she always seems to be in.
Yeah.
Amazing acting from Chastain, going from rage, sadness back to her blank annoyance so quickly is really satisfying to watch.
Definitely. Yeah, I think she can turn off and turn it on so effectively. I do like also the scene where she's feeding her porridge, as we've said. Well, I think because she tries to leave and gets stuck in the cold, and then she takes her in.
Yeah.
And that was a really tense scene because, she now knows they're trying to kill her and all this stuff. I just love how she's saying, I used to look after my mother leg, father snapped it like a twig and shit like that. And you're like, wow, this is a pretty deep, dark conversation. But the way she says it is this fake sincerity, and you could tell that she knows it's fake sincerity and she knows it's being seen through. This is kind of vague threats.
Yeah.
And the way she performs it is just really good and really kind of really creepy, really tense,
I found Thomas's arc quite interesting, where he's being pulled from pillar to post through love, through his acting, his love for Lucille that's always been there, and now he's falling in love with Edith. And as the film goes on, Thomas becomes less and less committed to the plans of poisoning the wives' plan, with this one. Ultimately, Thomas helps Edith, and Dr. McMichael escape. But ultimately, it doesn't work because I said before, the chemistry between Tom Hiddleston and Maya Wasikowska just isn't there. But the chemistry between Tom and Jessica is brilliant. That's why I was rooting for Lucille slightly more at the end. I wouldn't feel upset if Edith does, bite her knife, if you will.
So it's a long way back to England from that frozen wasteland. Maybe she just dies in the cold.
The North. You got a favourite performance then?
Well, I think, we've just basically hit the nail on the head many, many times with a Lucille-shaped sledgehammer. Yeah, Jessica Chastain, just 100% is the best thing in this film. I do like Tom Hiddleston's, as you said, I think when he's first introduced, he's oozing with charisma and charm. When they get to his house, this is kind of a facade, and as you're saying, he does feel like a sort of showing inner torment of his strain between
English gentleman,
his duty, his love, his other love, and I think he does a fairly good job. I would say the character that plays Edith, the best thing that she does are looking like worried, looking very, very worried at what's going on and kind of scared. I think it's her problem. I don't think this script gives her enough to do emotionally. She's searching for these mysteries and she is shit scared because this is weird what's going on. But beyond that, there is no personality beneath her.
It's just a very archetypal character.
And I think that's a shame, but there are hints that, if she was given more of an arc, she would also smash it out of the park. But
score about as for acting. What are you going for?
I'm gonna go like 8.9.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Again, most of this is going to be
6.7 to 8.
It's just I find this funny because this is the second villain we've talked about played by a female that I think is just one of the coolest villains I've seen in a while. The other one, Blade Runner 2049.
Oh right,
I thought she was fucking so cool. She was really scary, and this one was like she did a terrifying performance as a female sort of serial killer.
Yeah, I must say as well, like there are just not enough. Great female roles in villain parts.
Because some of these women, as this one, they just knock it out of the park.
It is far, far overdue that we haven't had a proper female Bond villain yet. I'm just like, how has that not happened? I just think that would be amazing. The only one really is in World Is Not Enough.
Oh, Elektra.
And maybe Rosa Klebb in... From Russia with Love, but like two in 25 films. I mean, come on. And we've just eked out 2 or 3 films with great female villain characters. So, yeah. Score for me for acting. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of these 3 anyway, especially Jessica Chastain. I think she's remarkable in this film. Even her English accent is really, really good. I just think Charlie Hunnam really brings the side down. It's just like, why the hell did you cast that guy doing it? I mean, he didn't do anything special in Pacific Rim. I mean, come on. Like Idris Elba, yes.
He killed the kaijus, man.
Bring Idris Elba back.
Yeah.
Fuck the kaijus. Idris Elba.
Idris Elba was incredible. Oh man, Idris Elba would have been great.
Yes, I'll go like an 8.5.
Yeah. Although I've never been a massive fan of Charlie Hunnam anyway.
No.
I don't know how he got any part that he did.
Like, he doesn't scream physician or doctor to me. I'm like, no, go away.
No.
Leave me.
No.
I'll do my own leg or something.
It's like he got lost in this. Or he's pretending he's actually captain of the football team, but he's pretending to be a doctor. It just doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Right, let's add up the scores then for Crimson Peak.
I have a feeling he's the janitor, and he's just trying to, lie. He's knocked out the doctor.
Crimson Peak gets a respectable 49.1. Right, Mr. Encyclopedia Man, what is your pick for Guillermo del Toro films?
It's Pan's Labyrinth.
Nice.
It's a Spanish game show. It's very popular.
Yes. So why did you pick this one?
It's tons of fawn.
Oh dear. I can hear all the unsubscribing going on right now.
They're all leaving.
So why did you pick this one?
I've watched it before. It's actually one of the earliest Guillermo del Toro films I've watched. So I was only really familiar with his work on some of his comic book movies, and that was about it. So when I was younger, Blade 2, I love Blade 2. I watched that a lot. That was his. Hellboy, the Hellboy series, Hellboy 1 and 2, really like them. And so I was more familiar with his comic book work. And this is the first film, again, I was pretty young. I was in school, where somebody was saying, oh, Guillermo del Toro does more than just comic films. You got to watch Pan's Labyrinth. And I started watching it, got it on DVD, started watching it, and it was in Spanish. I'm like, God damn it. But I watched it, and I thought it was just incredible. I just thought it was just an amazing kind of fairy tale fantasy film in like some horrible modern war-torn world. And I just thought it was a great movie. And so it's always stuck in my head. I don't think there was any question. If you say Guillermo del Toro films, I immediately think Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah. So what happens in Pan's Labyrinth?
Pan's Labyrinth is set in the 1940s in Spain. So the Spanish Civil War has been like maybe a decade prior, and the nationalists have won. And they're killing the communists. It's like the politics is kind of in the background. It's not really that important.
Yeah.
The main story is, in this turbulent political world, there's a little girl, Ophelia. Her mother is married to a captain in the Spanish army, who is tasked with killing rebels. It actually turns out she isn't originally human, so this is kind of strange, but it's where it adds the fantasy element. She's actually a princess from a mythical kingdom in the underworld, who came to Earth, died, and was reincarnated as a human child. And she's met by a faun in a labyrinth in the new digs that they have at the captain's quarters, who explains to her that she has to do 3 tasks, and then she can go back to her kingdom in the underworld. And so while this is going on, the captain has his own plot of like trying to destroy the rebels. She has this other plot. So that's very real world and very gritty and very war is hell. But she has to do these very fantastical fairy tale like tasks in order to go back to a fairy tale kingdom. So it's a very strange like blend of the very real and the very historical with the absolutely crazy and fantastical. And I think it does a very good job of that.
I really, really like this film. I saw this film a long, long time ago, and I didn't really remember too much about it. I remember the thorn, and it was, set in the Spanish wartime, Second World War, but I didn't remember too much other than that. So, and obviously the pale-faced man, he was creepy as fuck, but,
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Terrifying.
But I couldn't remember how this film ended, and when I rewatched it for the podcast, I was like, this is just an incredible end.
It hits you really hard in the stomach, right in the feels. It's one of those simultaneously sad, tragic, awful ends, but amazing, cathartic, uplifting, brilliant endings, at the same time.
Because some people might accuse the fact that, that this underworld is underwritten or under-explained when she finally gets there at the end, but for me, I don't think that matters too much, because the collision or the connection between the two stories is so powerful that doesn't matter. You're just left with this, really powerful moment at the end, and I thought it was great. Right, directing then. I quite like the way the faun is revealed. It's just a very simple, like, tracking shot on Ophelia as she's walking. Then the shot just drifts away to what appears to be just a rock. Then a bird lands on it and the rock bursts into life, and it's just some sort of ancient creature. Just really simple, effective stuff. Plus the sound effects as he moves just shouts ancient. It's like he's made of loads of creepy old doors that need a good oil. It's great characterization because all those sounds come out, probably because he hasn't moved in like centuries. I would say, though, the first task Ophelia has to do is interesting, where she goes into the old, like, dying tree to retrieve, like, the golden key from a fat toad. It definitely gave me, like, Indiana Jones vibes with all, like, the bugs and creepy crawlies. The Toad effects aren't great, though, I felt, and haven't aged well, which is a shame. I feel like they could have come up with a creature that they could have done practically instead of digitally, but...
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with you there. Like, so much of the film's, effects and action are practical. Again, as you said, the fawns, a lot of the stuff is done practically. And it is kind of a shame that our first task does feel, like, really fake. And I often always forget about the Toad bit.
Yeah.
Because, one, it's an underwhelming thing that happens fairly quickly. Yeah, and it is kind of a shame it's not done better. But, I think when you're talking about, to me, the standout fantasy section is in the Pale Man's
definitely
room. Oh my god, they went full out. Like, he looks incredible, and it's such a scary scene.
Yeah, I mean, I quite like the preview of what Ophelia is going to see on each task in the magic book that she's given. It just stimulates your imagination a little bit before you see what it actually looks like. And when you see the drawings for real in the scene, they look incredible, especially the Pale Man. Del Toro doesn't do much at all to create high tension in the scene, just by putting the Pale Man in the background of shots, all blurry, doing absolutely nothing. But because the design is so creepy and disgusting, you want to know where that guy is at all times. But the piece of food that tempts Ophelia is a grape. I mean, really? Like, a nice sausage roll, then yeah, sure. But a grape? No.
Get that fruit away from me.
I think it's just because we're coming up to Christmas now, and my mum makes these amazing sausage rolls. I mean, a grape? Come on.
He knows what to put on his table to get your ass then.
Pretty much,
Giant full table of sausage rolls. Yeah, I thought that was also really creepy where he's darting away the fairies that are trying to protect her and just grabs her and bites its head off.
It's like, no, because they had like really great personality, I felt, with the animation. So it was kind of a sad moment when they do get their heads bitten off.
Yeah, I was going to say that there's a interesting camera technique that is used over and over again in this film that I never really kind of clocked on until now that I watched it. And I think it's kind of interesting because it's to do with cutting and editing. And I saw this in the first scene as they're traveling through the woods. And you have the camera, pans. It's like this pan cut. And it's funny because it's, Pan's Labyrinth. But, and it does it several times, I don't know if you noticed, where the camera will pan, go past like a tree or whatever, and then cut again to another shot.
Scene,
And it's still panning, so it's like a pan, cut, pan. And I think every time it does that, I'm always thrown. I'm like, whoa, we're in another area. What's going on? And I thought that's an incredible technique that is not, utilized that much. Never really seen it that much. I don't know. It just stuck to my mind. I really like that camera work.
You do like your transitions,
I love my transitions. I absolutely adore my transitions. And, the more inventive a transition becomes, the more I like it.
One thing I would say as well, this film has definitely been described as a horror film, not just a fantasy film. Like, Del Toro loves his gore. The film is really gory at times.
I would say the captain is a fucking monster. He is worse than any make-believe creature you could possibly come up with. Man, he's evil. And, like, what really got me is where the first time you see his evilness on display, they capture some people and they think, they're probably rebels. And it's like, we're just hunting rabbits. And he goes, if my father says we're hunting rabbits, we're hunting rabbits. And he just grabs a bottle of wine that's in their knapsack and beats the kid to death. Like, he breaks everything in his face. And I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, oh my God. It's got the practical dummy of his face just being mushed.
And of course, it's not his officer's fault. He didn't finish searching their bag before murdering them.
Yeah.
Plus, the squeaking noises from Captain Vidal's boots and gloves give the character a really sinister edge, and it becomes annoying, but annoying on purpose. I feel like.
I definitely, I kind of did gasp and audibly gasp and cheer, like, God, that's gross, but good, he gets what he deserves. Where his maid or whatever cuts his mouth open,
Mercedes,
gives him a Chelsea grin. Holy shit. And I think it's amazing that they kept it
Yeah.
throughout the rest of the film. He's got this giant thing, and then when he sews it back up again, oh man, it just made my skin crawl.
And when the doctor cuts that resistant fighter's leg, you're like, oh god! Even though they cut away really quickly, it still made me gasp.
Yeah, no, because I think the thing is, they cut away, and it's preparing, and you think they're going to cut away, they're going to cut away, they're going to cut away, and they do the first saw through the leg and then cut away just before the guy screams. Yeah, that was very unsettling.
And when you see the aftermath of the guy's hand after he's been tortured, the hand is nearly like torn in two. They don't shy away from that at all.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. Yeah. I mean, it gets full on with the military stuff.
And there's a very similar scene in Crimson Peak where Mercedes is stabbing the captain in the back and then in the chest a few times, then suddenly puts the blade in the guy's mouth. Very, very similar in way that's structured.
Well, also even how he dies, where he gets shot in the cheek, and then his eye gets blood red. I think Guillermo del Toro doesn't like cheeks. There's something with him in cheeks. A cheek has to be stabbed or shot or cut. It's also one of the body parts on the face you don't see get much damage in any other film. You flick on 2 Guillermo del Toro films and he is abusing the cheeks.
Yeah, it's just like his signature way of killing the bad guy. Or, a character. It's just like, we're going to stab the guy in the face. Oh, that's a Del Toro film. Yeah.
yeah. Straight through the cheek. Del Toro's signature.
Yeah. Have you got a favourite shot then, or scene?
My favourite scene has got to be with the pale man. That entire sequence is scary. My favourite shot, where the captain is running, he's like, stop her, and then removes his hand off of his cut mouth. And that's the first time you see his Chelsea grin. Like, that always makes me go, whoa. All right. And I think that was an incredible, practical or whatever. It's a great, visual effect.
My favourite shot is a very simple one, actually. I think Del Toro disguises his directing to make it feel really complicated, but it's not at all. It's just so simple, with the constant flowing camera. Just really great stuff. I love the shot in the rain when Mercedes and Ophelia try to escape the mill under an umbrella, and Mercedes hears something and the shot circles around them but subtly moves in so the umbrella fills the frame. And when Mercedes turns quickly, and behind the umbrella, the captain and his men are right there in front of them, and it's kind of masked with, by the thundering rain. Again, just really great, simple, subtle directing with such a fluid camera. The camera always seems to be on the move. Del Toro flows around the scene, keeping a nice pace to the film, It's just really great stuff. Yeah. So, directing score for me for Pan's Labyrinth, I will go with a fairly high score, I think. I'll go an 8.7, I think, for directing. How about you, sir?
I'll give it a 8.9, or... Actually, I'll give it a 9.
All right, screenplay then. The film establishes the real monster in this film very, very quickly, that it's Captain Vidal. He's casually talking to the doctor about his baby, assuming that it's a boy, and the doctor says, "What makes you so sure the baby is a male?" Then Vidal giggles slightly and says, "Don't fuck with me." And it's just like, what? It's an answer that doesn't warrant such a reaction at all. Vidal is just completely arrogant and convinced that it's a boy. It's out of the question that it's not a boy, Just in that one line, you immediately worry for Carmen, Ophelia's pregnant mother, if it's not a boy. Well, then the script goes into whether Carmen is going to live through the pregnancy, the birth, rather than the baby. Yeah. I think one of my favourite lines is from the doctor when he's talking to the captain after he gave the tortured resistance fighter a drug to kill him peacefully, and the doctor says it's the only thing he could do, instead of what the captain asked him to do, which was to keep him alive, to question him more. The doctor says, "I could have, but I didn't." Then the captain says, "It would have been better for you. You know it. I don't understand. Why didn't you obey me?" Then the doctor says, "To obey, just like that, for the sake of obeying, without questioning, that's something only people like you can do, Captain." It's such a brave thing to say. Bravery in a character like that and knowing that he's probably going to get found out and die, fills you with such emotion that separates who's truly evil and who's good, and of course the captain shoots him in the back. It's quite a powerful moment, I found, that scene.
Yeah, I think a lot of the scenes with him are just really good and just again, really, really tense. I do think he is a very evil character. Yeah. There's no question, and he is very cruel, especially just before he tortures the stutterer.
Yeah,
and he's saying this speech about just very casually. He's just smiling. He's just got a cigarette. He's like, whatever. This is just a day at the office for me. And then he says to him, "At first, I'm not going to believe what you say. Then I will use this. Then I will trust you more.
Yeah.
Then I will use this." Brings out something else. Then we'll be like brothers.
Yeah.
Then by the time I get to this, I will trust everything you say. It's a knife. And you're like, good God, this is just so... And then he just says to him, if you can count to 3 without stuttering, I'll let you go. And he knows he can't, but then he lets it 1, 2, and it's and he just starts beating the shit out of him. It's whoa. This guy is evil. I think beyond that, though, there is subtle hints that he is a more developed character.
Okay.
Beyond that he has a past, because he obviously is very, he doesn't like conversations about his father.
Yeah, the whole broken watch thing, yeah.
Yeah, because you see him constantly. He's always looking at his watch, just always looking at his watch. Even when he gets into an ambush, and he's like, this would be a great time to die, and he's still looking at his watch, and he doesn't die then. And then you have that speech where this guy says, "I knew your father," and he said, when he died, he broke his watch so his son would know that his time of death. Yeah, and he's like, nonsense. My father didn't have a watch and stuff.
Even though he gets his watch out every 5 minutes.
Every couple of seconds, yeah. But I think from this kind of conversation and hints to it, it's I don't think he really knew his father, and his father was a great hero and died like a man should. Yeah. And I think he wants to have a son to sort of imbue that onto, because he's a great hero. He thinks that should somehow carry on. That's at least my thought. But you do get hints that there is something deeper in his head.
Because he's so desperate to have a boy, isn't he? And not a girl. To redeem, to somehow redeem his own failings in this new baby.
Which I think is great, how he finally bites the dust, where after he kills Ophelia, and he takes his son back, and then the Resistance take his son, and he says to Mercedes, "Tell him the time I died, and that this is how a man should." And it's just cuts him off. It's he's not even going to know your name, and just shoots him in the face. Yeah, it's no, we're not going to do that.
I love the last 10 minutes of this film, because from the start, it's you're watching 2 different films. One, a war film about the Spanish fascist military trying to seek out the resistance. The other film is Ophelia trying to complete these 3 tasks in this fantastical world to become, a princess in the underworld. And throughout this film, there seems to be no connection between the 2 storylines, I felt. Only Ophelia trying to navigate through both of them. The war film element nearly takes over the film until the fawn turns up again to give her the final task, and the fawn says, "This time, Ophelia, you must obey this time." And you're like, "Oh, no. The fawn is just like the captain." You think the film is trying to tell you that this story is a tragedy, that both worlds are as bad as each other, but Ophelia isn't to know that because she's just a kid. But in the final task is that Ophelia needs to bring her baby brother to the fawn so he can use a drop of blood to open the portal to the underworld. The blood of an innocent. Ophelia brings him the baby, but the fawn has a massive knife, and Ophelia is like, "Nope, you're not going to hurt my brother." The fawn can't really understand it. I'm like, "You've hardly known your brother. This makes no sense."
Well, I love how he goes over all the she's had a shitty life, and how baby brother has killed her mother and all this, and it's and even that you still want to save him. It's yes. I was okay, very well. And but I do love how that ties in together. Her trying to save her brother, she gets killed by the captain, and the innocent blood is hers.
But when Ophelia gets killed by the captain trying to save the baby, my first instinct was like, yes, this is a tragedy. This is a tragic story. But her blood falls into the portal and her spirit passes over to the underworld. And her ancient elf father, as I like to call him, I guess, says, "You have spilled your own blood rather than the blood of an innocent." That was the final task and the most important. The final task wasn't really a task at all. It was a test to see if Ophelia is simply a good person. A person who is willing to choose to protect her own family. In the final 10 minutes, the whole film connects beautifully in such a simple way that you just don't see coming. Like the whole thing is about being free to choose who you want to be and not obeying to people without question, or and it's reflected beautifully in both worlds, like brilliantly. It's just I was bowled over by the end. I was like, I was just like, I can't see the connection here. What's going to happen? And then it does it, and you're like, that's genius. It's fucking genius.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I love how she's using basically all the skills that this is kind of Hero 101, but all the skills that she had learned throughout, both in the fantasy world and then in the real world, how to get one over on the captain.
Yeah,
and I really like that, using the chalk to open doors to his study and to escape and stuff. And also, like, using her mother's medication, like pouring the whole of it into his coffee, so he would be very weak and docile. It's stuff like that was great.
Yeah.
And how she ultimately does the right thing, even if it's like she won't go to this paradise, which is much better than her life now, and only for it to be revealed that her death is really what helps. But I thought also what was a great touch on that is, tragically her mother dies in the film. Her kind of underworld mother is the exact same actress. So to me, that got me into minds of like, is this a sort of afterlife? Like I was kind of like, I think at that point you don't really need to make some sort of logic into it, but the visuals of it I thought were pretty amazing. It's like, she does get to see her mother again at least as well, or a woman that's like her mother.
Probably a Contact situation going on there. The film Contact, they're just looking like how she wants them to look like, possibly.
Yeah.
I feel like the film certainly represented how evil like fascism is on the same level as something like Come and See that we've covered in war films. It got me in the same like emotional place at times during this film in the script, So I thought that was really, really impressive, especially like half of this film is a fantasy film, and to have that same level of emotion in both films, both completely different, really is really impressive. But there are moments of levity in this film, which is great. There are some funny lines, like just from like the cooking maids. He's nothing but a fuzzy dandy. And with Mercedes, and an epic line where she says, "You won't be the first pig I've gutted," cuts the captain's mouth. My favourite line is from the resistance fighter that has the gammy leg, and the doctor says to him, "Let's see how that leg is doing, Frenchie." "How do you think it's doing?" "It's fucked up." I thought that was just funny, because it's kind of a bit out of the blue, to expect this type of humour, but it works well. You got a favourite line then, or...?
His interactions with Ophelia, even though they're not that many, they're really quite intense.
Yeah.
Like, he just hates her. He fucking hates her, like, for on some inexplicable reason. It's probably because she's a girl,
Yeah, just could be as simply as that.
Even, like, the first time they meet, she gives him her left hand to shake, and he just grabs it really hard, like her by the right hand, and is like, that's the wrong hand.
Yeah.
And you're like, to me, that just gets, where he's at through, and, like, the level of danger she's involved in. But, yeah, so I would say my favourite bunch of lines are probably actually him toying with the guy that he's going to torture.
Okay.
Or, even his last scene where she's just like, "Your son will never know your name," and stuff like that. I mean, that's a pretty damn good one.
So, score for me for screenplay, I think I'm going to go high on this one. It really bowled me over the end, because I was just like, where is the connection here? And then it's just such a simple one, and it's just like, this is This is genius.
Well, I think the genius of it is like in the background, this baby is being born, her baby brother, and that's a constant thing, you know, and that he's the connection between these two, you know. It's just pretty cool because it's like it's under your nose the whole time. There's a baby being born. There's a baby being. Oh yeah, the baby is is what like links both tales together.
Yeah, so I'm going to go 9.6, I think. And also, just the way Vidal is written, Captain Vidal, he's written in such an evil way, but it still feels realistic to the time. It's just an incredible evil character, that.
Yeah, I think I'll go maybe something similar. I'll go a 9.4.
Right, acting then. The acting is brilliant during the dinner table scene where Captain Vidal is addressing everyone and then is talking to the doctor, and again, that they know one of the resistance fighters are injured because he found a vial of antibiotics. And the doctor and Mercedes share a look, and you immediately know that they're working in some way with the resistance. It's just like that one look with each other. You're like, yep, they're with the resistance. They don't even say anything. It's just... it's all on their faces. You just know immediately. It's great. One little acting moment that makes Captain Vidal that much more evil is after the firefight in the forest in the rain. And the captain finds a survivor nearly dead, and he asks if he can talk, and soon sees that he can't. Then points the pistol at his head, and the resistance fighter puts his hand up to try and move the pistol out of the way, but the captain just bats his hand away, and the captain does this 3 times before he shoots him in the head, and it's like he's just toying with him before he dies, and it's just...
yeah, he's a very cruel man.
Oh, it's awful, you know. I'm not sure you can get more evil than this character. And it's like you get this sense that he has this sense of entitlement. He's almost feels like he's a god man or something. He has a very god complex to his character.
Well, actually, he even says that when they're discussing the resistance with him and his friends, and they're discussing how the war's going and stuff. And he says, the difference between us and the rebels is they believe we are all equal. Yeah. And you're like, oh, okay. Because I think right there you can sense it. Yeah, he believes he's better than everybody, you know. So to him, they just don't make any sense. And that's why he loves to kill them. Yeah, very interesting. I do like Mercedes and the girl that plays her, because she's part of the resistance and is like an insider. Yeah. And I just love even, how she does, her lines, when she meets up with her brother, and she's just pissed off that she has to carry on the charade for the captain, I do all this stuff for him. It makes me sick. And, I love that, it's her sibling and stuff.
She has an arc, and you get a lot of that through her subtle acting. Definitely, she's very obedient to start with, and very shy and quiet and very caring to Ophelia, and then basically grows out of this shyness to really confront Vidal and stab him in the mouth.
Yeah, stabbing him in the mouth. One of the bits I quite liked about her is when Ophelia, she basically says to her, you're part of the resistance, aren't you? And you can tell that's just so shocking and out of nowhere. But then how she looks at that, receiving that information from this girl, she looks absolutely horrified. Like, she's like, I'm going to fucking die. You can see that.
She does look so scared,
Yeah, she even says to her, worried, have you told anybody? It's like, no, but I want to go with you. And, that's where that other shot you were saying. And that was a really good performance.
You immediately get the sense when she looks calmer, that you get the sense through their chemistry that they're safe, that they can trust each other. Not safe, but they can trust each other. And that's all through their acting, Favorite performance? What are you going for?
I'm going with the captain,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, same.
I just think that actor, in my personal opinion, he just steals every scene he's in. And he's in so much of it. And I know he's, I do like the little girl. I do like Mercedes. There are other characters that are great. The doctor. There's a lot of great acting in this film. And the mother, she does a great performance as well. So there are so many great performances. But he's such an asshole. Yeah. And he's so great at being it. He just dominates all that. He is the giant black cloud in this film. He's the big bad, and you can tell why he's the big bad.
Almost immediately,
Immediately. There is something wrong about this man. There is something in his eyes. There is something about how he talks. He's evil to the core, and he demonstrates it.
It's not just the uniform. It's definitely in the way he carries himself. Yeah, mine's to say my favourite character is Captain Vital, played by Sergi Lopez. Also, Doug Jones, I think, would be a very close second, who plays the Fawn and plays the Pale Man.
Yeah.
Apparently, Doug Jones could only really see through like the nose holes from the Pale Man, so he had very, very limited visibility during those scenes.
Oh, so he couldn't see through his hands then?
That would be silly, Boaz. But yeah, even with, his acting, that first scene when he's playing the Thorn, just the way he like moves as well, and like that weird shake he does, like he's just trying to shake his body up to get loose or whatever, because he's basically been asleep for centuries, I would imagine. So score for me for acting, I think it's really impressive, to be honest, through the whole cast, really. And again, I'm not a massive fan of child acting, but this girl is great. I think she's really, really great. So I'll go like a 9.3, I think. How about you, sir?
That is a good score, actually. I think I'll go a 9, just a regular 9.
Right, let's add up the scores then for Pan's Labyrinth. Bloody hell. Pan's Labyrinth gets a whopping 55 points.
Wow.
Which...
Is it in the 10?
It certainly is in the top 10. It is joint... What do you reckon? What do you reckon it is?
5th?
Nope. Higher than that.
Really? Okay. 3rd.
Yes, joint 3rd with Get Out. That is awesome. Yeah, so Pan's Labyrinth definitely wipes the floor with Crimson Peak. Yeah, I still have a soft spot for Crimson Peak. I do like the visuals in that film, and Jessica Chastain is amazing, but I'm not sure many films would beat Pan's Labyrinth, I don't think, certainly in terms of script. So yeah, a great win there. Next week, as West Side Story will be hitting cinemas, we'll be having a look at, this fairly unknown director, done a weird shark film where the shark was kind of broken most of the time. I don't know.
That sounds horrible. Sounds crap.
I don't know, like Steven Spielberg, have you heard of that guy?
Stephen who?
Yeah, he rings a bell, but yeah, we'll be having a look at Steven Spielberg films for next week.
Yeah, he must be one of these up-and-coming guys. I hope he does well.
Right, that's it then for this week. Thank you, Baz. You have been ghostly as the encyclopedia.
You have been a labyrinth of entertainment.
That's a better one than mine. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's it for this week's pod. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to find out more about the podcast or suggest future topics for us to discuss related to upcoming releases, let us know on Instagram at Film vs. Film Podcast and on Twitter at FVF_podcast. Remember, please subscribe. Pod signing off.